Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Spencer Keck, and I'm coming at you live from here in Tunnel Hills, Hardin County, Kentucky, where I'm running for magistrate in District 3. Y'all, we know here in Hardin County that life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is what this whole thing is all about. So let's talk about what it is that is right now trying to impede us from our life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. You know, we know that on Main Street and Wall Street, there's a big disconnect. So when you look at what has been happening ever since the bombs started falling in Israel, from Israel to Lebanon, and same country and the United States combined to attack Iran. Hey, we know Iran, the leader there, was evil. No good. Needed to go. But the whole regime needed to go. We didn't have a plan for that. What we got instead, near stagflation. So, you know, every single one of us right here at home, we've been talking about the war in Iran. We're looking at this continued instability in Lebanon and what it means for folks right here in Hardin County. We're just trying to make the ends meet. But first, let's talk a little bit about who I am, because I think it matters so we can understand where I'm coming from and what I am trying to tell you and where I got my views from. So, where did it all start? Well, all started here in Kentucky, of course, because I am a Kentuckian. I am the educated hillbilly here at the Hillbilly Think Tank. No, that's not an oxymoron. You know, there have been educated hillbillies here ever since Daniel Boone came through the Cumberland Gap, and my kith and kin are right there with him. So I'm a veteran, as my family have been for generations. I served in the United States military from 1990 to 2014. And I was in that first Gulf War there in 1991 in that Persian Gulf region. So I know what the region looks like, tastes like, feels like. I was in Afghanistan starting in September 2001, right after the attack happened. I was in Australia when the attack happened, and we headed straight up to that region. Next, that was, of course, right after the towers fell. And I was there till early in 2002. I know what it smells like when the whole world is on fire, when you can't see the sun in the middle of the day, when the soot from the oil fires collect on your skin, turn your skin black. I know what that's like. When you're breathing that in, I know what that's like. And I know what it costs, not just in dollars and cents, but in lives, right? Number one, some of my family members' lives. So I know what it costs to the families, and I know what it costs to the communities when we come back home. That is the biggest deal here, the human cost. Now, after I returned from service, I worked for the VA from 2015 to 2021. I watched veterans, men and women who gave everything that they have to give, fight a different kind of battle, but You know, this was just a battle to get the care that they had earned, that they deserved, that they worked and gave their very soul for, and watched other young men and women lose their lives for. So, did that for a bit, and I decided, hey, I needed to switch routes in my life, and I decided to do the troops to teacher program. I came back home to Kentucky, and I'm a public school teacher now. Every day, I sit across from kids whose parents are working two jobs, watching the prices go up, wondering how they're going to fill their gas tank and still be able to put food on the table for the kids that I take care of every day and that I teach essentials in life. I'm an English language arts teacher, but I'm also certified in health science education and in social studies. And I try to make sure that English language arts is an opportunity to teach those things too. Those are all life skills. But I know what it means to work for a living. That is key. I've done it my whole life in service to this country and this community. And I'll keep doing it for you if you give me the honor of serving you as your District 3 magistrate. All right. So now, let me tell you what's happening out there in the world and why it is your business. So, we're going to go into segment 2. What happened in Iran? So, we know what happened on February 28th of this year when the United States and Israel launched coordinated military strikes against Iran. They were targeting nuclear facilities, military infrastructure, and leadership. Well, after about 40 days of sustained combat, a ceasefire took effect on April 8th. Now, what has happened to the ceasefire since then? Well, we know it's an off and on again thing all the time. Anything to help manipulate the stock prices for the president's buddies, they happen. Before I go on, got to say, give a quick shout out. Ding Black. Hi. Good to see you there, Ding. Hopefully you're still there to know that I gave you a shout out. All right. So let's look. What happened now? We know we were promised over the weekend that we were going to have a real ceasefire in effect and some meaningful change that would hopefully get our cost of living heading back into the right track, back into order. Did that happen? Well, no. A phone call was made, and Dementia Don called a leader that has been helping the U.S. out, or the U.S. has been helping them out, and that leader said, "Nope, no way, no how. They're not going to quit their campaign in Lebanon." So what did that do to our deal? Because we know that Iran was not going to agree to any deal that did not include cessation of fire to their proxies in Lebanon. So, well, here's what happened. Iran says that the U.S. strikes violate the ceasefire. We just started striking them again after that call with Uncle Bibi there in Israel. So we decided that this president, he knows, as you said, he doesn't think about our economy, about regular Americans and how it affects our pocketbooks whenever he's doing any negotiations. He says he doesn't think about it in the least. Well, what else does he not think about? You know, in 2009, while a soldier was deployed in Iraq, his homeowner association foreclosed on the family home and over $800 in dues, sold the $300,000 house for $3,200 at auction to get those homeowner association dues. This is the type of thing that happens when the folks are on deployments that are meaningless. Right at the same time now, what's happening? Well, the Chinese ship leaves after a standoff near the Taiwan-controlled islands. So Taiwan and China are at each other's throats. I should say that China is at Taiwan's throats because China is far bigger and much more powerful if we're not there to be the protecting big brother, which we're not. So what does this mean for us? Well, let's dig into it a little bit more. So again, we know that there was from April 8th on a ceasefire, and that ceasefire just stopped. Now, I'm not here to argue about whether those strikes were right or wrong. That debate belongs in Washington, and frankly, these decisions were made without asking folks here in Hardin County what they thought. What I am here to tell you is that we know, and I know, what's happened to your wallet ever since those bombs started falling from February, and then what they're going to do today. It's going to make everything worse for us. Here's the number that should make every person in this county sit up straight. Kentucky saw a 45% increase in gas prices since this war began. Once again, 45% increase. That's just since February of this year. And that is not a rounding area. We have not made an error in our math. It's actually correct. It's real money out of your pocket. And every single time you pull up to the pump, you feel it and you know it. Now, the war triggered what the International Energy Agency is calling the largest oil supply shutdown of, well, about the 1/5 of the world's oil and natural gas. 1/5. Again, that's not a mathematical mistake. That is a large portion of the world's oil and natural gas. So this is one of the largest oil disruptions in the history of the global oil market. And when the choke point closed there at the Strait of Hormuz, Brent crude oil, it shot past $120 a barrel. Gas prices nationally hit over $4 a gallon. Diesel, the fuel that powers every 18-wheeler, every combine, and every delivery truck, diesel hit $5.62 a gallon. And, this is just nationally, and that's at the peak. Well, we're going to see more peaks since we've started dropping more bombs. Again, that's for diesel, that's up almost 50 cents. I mean, percent, not cents, but about 50% since before the war started. So since before February, we've gone up about 50%. Let me say that again, because we got to let that sink in. Diesel is up nearly 50%. That's not something we can just laugh at here in Hardin County. And I haven't seen anyone really laughing about it here in our county. Maybe in other parts of the world where we know that, hey, there are folks who have enough money to put everything on a credit card or pay for it straight out of their bank. That's the billionaires. It's not us. But again, here is what it spurred all of that. We could have had, and we were getting to, a peace agreement. There were folks working around the clock to try to stop this insanity for all of us, not just for the richest folks, But the prime minister, right, said he will launch a massive attack throughout Lebanon. He said this a day ago. And we knew that that would collapse the Lebanon half ceasefire, but it could collapse the U.S.-Iran negotiations. Well, it did. This is a day late and a dollar short. We know that it actually did completely collapse it. And we're looking at now the effect of what happens when negotiations collapse and regular Americans are sitting here holding the bag, holding the pain of someone deciding they're not going to negotiate anymore on behalf of our wallets, right? Now, we want to also know while all this is going on, what the president has been tweeting or putting out on his social media. And so let's see if we think this is helping our negotiations. A president is sending in liaisons to try to set up a peace deal, and he tweets this out. Thank you for your attention to this matter. He also sends tweets with ships being blown up, and then he says adios days before he actually started doing that today. Well, is anyone going to listen to you say that you want to negotiate when your masterful leader, who says he's the master of the deal, is sending out these ridiculous tweets, these provoking tweets? Yeah, no, this is really why the deal is collapsing. So we know the pressure has come from the persons that we were, helping out, and they have not wanted to help us calm things down. They want us to escalate. That's all it's about. So are Americans going to keep on agreeing to this? Do we all agree to this? Or do we think that there is possibly something else we should be doing and could be doing to get back on track? Now, I'm not the only veteran who thinks that this is an absolute travesty and that we've got to use better reasoning and judgment when we're going into engagements like this.
When John McCain was actively advocating against enhanced interrogation techniques.
Especially, but not only, the practice of waterboarding.
I'm laughing because I'm sitting back after retiring from shooting people all over the planet for the red, white, and blue and wondering the same thing, like, why the f do we continue to do this?
At the same time, we're bringing in the new Syrian prime minister who's chopping our heads off. That guy's not our enemy anymore. I fear we have overplayed our hand a little bit here. A lot has been exposed. AJ, before you came on, we had Claude, Anthropic's AI, scrape the entire internet and run a full background on you, and here's what came back.
Oh, God.
3 tours in Iraq, the invasion, Fallujah, the Ramadi corridor. The whole time Iran's Quds force was arming the Shia militias, killing Marines. The FPs that punched through armor and killed hundreds of Americans were Iranian supplied. You fought Iran's proxies for 20 years without ever officially being at war with Iran. Now it's April of 2026. Operation Epic Fury is in its 8th week. 15 U.S. service members have already been killed. 5,000 Marines from the same U pipeline you deployed with are sitting off Iran's coast. The ceasefire lapses today. Trump has not ruled out ground troops. The Pentagon is actively planning raids on Karg Island and the Strait of Hormuz. Here's the question. You fought Iran through proxies for 2 decades. Now we're openly at war with them. What are you saying that American people are not? And are we about to make the same mistakes all over again?
Yes. I would never argue that Iran was, I'll say this a little clearer. I am not an advocate for any war. Knowing what it costs, knowing what it physically costs with budgetary requirements, with inflationary, reason, or, with inflationary, I would say, causes and effects that happen from there, what that does to the American public, people, what it does to the people that actually deploy. I think that we have taken the playbook off of the shelf from 2003, blown the dust off of it, and are playing the same hits. However,
So that is saying a lot, because the Marine expeditionary units that he deployed with and that I deployed with, he and I both know they bear the heaviest brunt of the burden when it comes to losing lives, receiving casualties. So it's the cost to us here in Hardin County, sitting outside the combat zone, far outside of it, far away from it. And it's the cost in lives and the cost in the minds of those of us that come back, and the cost to our families. That's a big cost.
I do believe that Iran has always been and will continue to remain, at that time, their regime, a threat to the United States. I'm not arguing that they're not that they're not a threat. I'm not arguing that they are not, that they haven't fought us, that I have not literally fought with Shia militias throughout my entire career. But I think that with our dominance, and dominance is the right word here, right? In Iraq, we didn't have air superiority, we had air supremacy, right? With the United States military dominance, that is already enough of a deterrent to me. We have a first option, which is always peace, debate, deliberation, maybe sanctions that come inside of there. The second option is breaking an enemy or a country to our will through superior firepower or willpower. But there's always a third option. And the third option, I believe, comes from an organization that you used to work for a long time. What if we did not have to commit thousands of troops to something that we don't really know what the end game is? What are the objectives inside of this? What were the objectives for Iraq? We saw this, and I love my country, and I love the Marine Corps with every fiber of my being. But we raced to Baghdad, toppled the regime, and then didn't have a plan once we caught the car. Have you ever seen a dog catch a car? Like, they don't know what to do next. And then we went into 20 years of nation building. If we want a free Iran, and we want an Iran that pre the Ayatollah, pre the revolution of 1979, they were considered
the days of the Shah.
Right. They were the Paris of the Middle East. But a revolution cannot sustain and remain if it's not born and bred from within. We saw that in Iraq. We saw that in Afghanistan. How much blood did we have to spill to nation build and build this for a country that couldn't or wouldn't do it for themselves?
So that's a question worth asking over and over and over, especially right now, before anyone starts saying, oh yeah, let's send more sons and daughters into this. We have got to say, what is the outcome that we desire if we actually are to put boots on the ground? If we actually topple the regime on the ground, not just by bombing them, but on the ground, we topple them. What do we want afterwards? What do we expect afterwards? And what realistically can be expected afterwards? Because we did not turn Afghanistan or Iraq into thriving democracies in a republic where everyone stands up for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We didn't. We couldn't. So what is our true objective right now over there, because we're now to our third segment. What does this all mean on the ground in Hardin County? So you might be thinking, okay, that's all about oil markets. That's global stuff. What does this have to do with me here in Elizabethtown, in Colesburg, Youngers Creek, downtown Elizabethtown, out here in Tunnel Hills? What does it have to do with us? What does it even have to do with something out, someone else further out in the county, not in my district, like in Rineyville or Cecilia or Radcliffe? Well, let's walk ourselves through it. All right. Let's go to the gas pump. You already feel it. You know, when you pull into that gas station on Dixie Highway or on Mulberry or on 62 on Ring Road, something just, it isn't right. Right. Before this war, the national average was around $2.98 a gallon. By late March, it was $3.58 a gallon. It crossed $4. And here in Kentucky, one of the hardest hit states in the country, we felt it even worse. Just down the road here, $4.69. Something's going on. So that's at the pump. Now, let's go into the grocery store. What are we seeing and feeling there? Now, this is the one that's going to really get me fired up, because this is where it hits families the hardest, where it hits students in my classroom. And I know now, of course, that the school year has ended for the students. A lot of them are going home to be hungry, because everything in that grocery store was delivered by a diesel truck. Fresh vegetables are up over 3% just from March to April of this year. Beef is up, and veal, if you can afford it ever anyway, they're up over 3%. Other meats are up. Fish is up. Economists are telling us that a 10% rise in diesel pushes overall consumer prices up. Just a fact of the matter. We didn't get a 10% rise. We got a 50% rise. The full effect of that is still working its way through the system. You haven't seen the worst of it yet at the checkout line. And that is what really, really worries me. The cost is going to come back and is coming back to the consumer, but the costs have to be shared. And the folks who are doing the delivery and the folks who are selling it, they're not going to bite the cost to save us. They just can't. That's economics. So that is biting us. Now, for our farmers, Hardin County has deep agricultural roots. That is the spine and the root of this county. I'm talking about the Wilmoth family out there in Cecilia, 6 generations of farming. Talking about Paul Dennison all the way over down even in Horse Cave, even leave us, he's growing strawberries and sweet corn and everything in between. I'm talking about folks who sell at the Hardin County Farmers Market, and they run this county's food economy. So we know the Dennisons do that. Wilmoth family do that. Higher diesel means higher cost to run equipment, higher cost to get products to the market, higher cost for fertilizers. And these are inputs, they're petroleum based. Kentucky farmers were already dealing with stubbornly high input costs in 2025. And those input costs didn't get any output solution once we had the tariff war. So this war, after the tariff war, poured fuel, pardon the pun, on that fire. Now, for our families at Fort Knox, Let's not forget the backbone at the top of our body here in Hardin County. We'll call it the cervical spine, right? Since the roots and the backbone lead to the cervical spine of our county's economy, and that's Fort Knox. Fort Knox employs over 16,000 people and generates $2.6 billion in economic impact on this region. When you've got military families living paycheck to paycheck, and a lot of them are, and again, I know because I was one of them, a $1 increase per gallon in gas price hits them the same as it hits everybody else. The junior enlisted soldier driving from off-post housing in Radcliffe to the gate every morning, well, they're feeling this. The DOD civilian worker commuting from Elizabethtown is feeling it. This isn't abstract for them. Now, let's move on to our small businesses. This, this is really another one of my heartfelt portions of the county because I love doing my shopping, spending my money right here in our county, in Elizabethtown. District 3 is where I like to play when I have some time to do so. I like to go down to Running Souls, buy some hokas. I like to walk across the street and buy some vinyl, the new store there right next to, Bird Whistle, and get some, new or used books at Bird Whistle. Put them on my shelves back here and my others all over the house. But small businesses, they're feeling it. Every restaurant, every shop, every contractor in this county depends on supply chains, and those supply chains run on diesel fuel. The analysts, they're warning us already. The full effect of these higher diesel prices hitting the supply chains, they could be felt over the next several months. Patrick DeHaan over at Gas Buddy has said it plainly. This is really quickly going to ignite additional inflation. That means higher prices on everything coming to a store near you, right here in the main streets of Hardin County. And y'all, Main Street, Dixie running right through the heart of our downtown, running right through the town square. Man, that is one of the most wonderful places in this county. But it's hitting small businesses hard. Now, let's go to our fourth segment here in a second. And this is going to be a segment about the Lebanon angle. Of course, no one else might be interested in this layer, but I've just got to talk about it because it means so much. It tells us so much about why we are here. Okay. So once again, we know that when we woke up this morning, we found out President was bombing Iran again, and Israel has gone crazy in Lebanon. They pulled out all the stops. There are no stops. So we've got to consider what this means for this big picture that I'm spelling out for you here.
Reporting just came out yesterday or the day before that U.S. officials actually reached out to Iranian officials and told them to just ignore anything that Donald Trump says publicly on Truth Social. Iran's own government was told by our government that none of that is actually true. It's all just designed for his base. Literally WWE style tweets.
But then what happens? Turns out he did mean the one that said adios with bombs dropping on their boats and ships again. So, you know, he can do some of both craziness. All right. So Lebanon is another layer. The conflict in Lebanon, Hezbollah is taking significant losses in the fighting. Well, I don't have any love for Hezbollah, but still, this is regional instability spreading. It adds more uncertainty to the entire Eastern Mediterranean and the Middle East region. Global shipping routes have been disrupted. International markets are just throttled, not only rattled, they're throttled. When the Middle East is unstable, energy markets are unstable. And when energy markets are unstable, working families in Kentucky pay more for everything. I served in this region. I know this terrain, not just geographically, but politically. I've seen what happens when a whole chessboard gets kicked over. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing a petulant leader kicking over a chessboard. It takes years for things to stabilize after that. Just think about when you play Monopoly with a friend of yours. You have maybe 6 people around the table playing Monopoly, and then your petulant friend realizes he's losing and he just flips the Monopoly board over. Well, that's what we got going on here. You know, if you imagine a chess player doing that, it'd be even worse. He wouldn't be able to play any chess tournaments again after that. And that's what we got going on. So it takes years, like I said, for things to stabilize after someone does that. The economists are telling us the same thing. Even though a ceasefire with Iran could have been reached, full normalization of supply chains and energy capacity will take time. If we had even reached, an agreement, if we really had a real ceasefire. So the damage that's been done, it doesn't just undo itself overnight. So, all right, let's go into segment 5 here. Let's just take a real moment to talk honestly about politics. All right, because when you see that the White House is setting up for a UFC fight right now on the South Lawn, and it's really going to happen. They're actually setting up this whole structure, this super cage to have a cage fight, right? It's going to happen on June 14th. Well, if it's safe enough to have this type of event outside, why do we need to build a $1 billion ballroom bunker? Right? Just think about that. If that's safe enough to do that, man. So let's get back to it. Our segment now. Here's where I want to speak directly to my friends and neighbors who voted for DJT. I respect you. I understand why you did, and I'm not here to lecture you. Of course, half the point of running for this seat is to earn your trust, not demand it. But I want you to look at something with me. This war was called Operation Epic Fury. It was launched by the Trump administration. Gas prices in Kentucky went up 45%. Diesel went up nearly 50%. Groceries are getting more expensive. And the White House response? A spokesperson said the president had always been clear about the temporary disruptions that would stem from the operation. Temporary disruptions? That's what they're calling it? I want you to think about what that phrase means for you. If you're a single mom in Vine Grove putting $40 of gas in a tank that used to take $27. I want you to think about what temporary disruptions means to a farmer trying to figure out if he can afford to run his equipment this season. I want you to think about it when you're standing in the checkout line at Kroger or Aldi and you're watching the toll climb higher than it used to, far higher. Now, we know that the Donald Trump family has never had to make those choices. Not one day in their lives. I have, you have, and the folks I went to war with, many of them from small counties just like this one, they have too. I stand for Main Street. I don't stand for Wall Street. All right, so now let's go to our sixth segment tonight. Let's talk about what a magistrate can actually do. Because now I want to be straight with you. A county magistrate doesn't set foreign policy. I can't control oil prices. I know that. I have no vote on where the military sends troops. But what I can do is fight like hell to make sure Hardin County government works for the working people of this county. That means fiscal responsibility, making sure tax dollars go to roads, infrastructure, and services that make life better for everyday folks, not sweetheart deals for a connected few. It means advocating loudly for the Fort Knox community, making sure our military families, our veterans, and our DoD civilian workers have the local support and services they need and that they deserve. It means standing up for local farmers and small businesses when rising costs are squeezing them, pushing for county policies and partnerships that support the agricultural and small business backbone of this county. And it means telling the truth, even when the truth is uncomfortable, even when it's inconvenient. I believe in life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Those aren't just words on paper to me. Those are the principles I carried with me into the Gulf War in 1991. I carried them again into Afghanistan in 2001 and every deployment after that. Into the VA offices where I fought for veterans who have been forgotten, I carried those principles. And now, every day when I go into the classroom where I stand in front of kids who deserve better than what the political class has been given them, I stand for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, because the political class has not been given any of us a fair shake when it comes to that. All right, so in closing tonight, I want to leave you with this. When I was deployed, we used to say that the soldier and Marine and sailor next to you doesn't care what party you belong to. They care whether you show up, whether you actually do your job and keep your word. That's the same standard that I'm asking you to hold me to. I'm not running to be a Democrat. I'm running to be your magistrate, to work for every resident of District 3, Democrat, Republican, Independent, because roads, they don't care who you voted for, and neither does the price of a gallon of milk. The world is unsettled right now. Prices are high. People are anxious. And in times like these, you need people in public office who know what it means to sacrifice, who understand what it means to really conserve and stretch a dollar. And you always want people who will choose Main Street over Wall Street. That's my commitment to you. I am Spencer Keck. I'm here in Hardin County, District 3, running for magistrate on the ticket this November. I would be honored to earn your vote. Bless you, bless Hardin County, and bless every one of us here in the United States of America, because we know that if we stay united, we will not fall. So, in that vein, I love my neighbors as I love myself, because I want us to all be united. I don't want to see Kentucky fall. Y'all have a great evening. Keep your powder dry, stay sharp, keep thinking. Bless your corazon. Have a great rest of the week, and hopefully we'll have more good news next time.
Because when the bank foreclosed and farms across